Hey everybody, welcome to the show. And today I get to hang out with the homie, Blaze Panariso, who is an employee benefits consultant with Purpose. The company he works for is called CBIZ. Blaze, welcome to the show.
Johnny, thank you for having me.
I appreciate you and I appreciate your heart, and I think you have experience in a realm where a lot of us need wisdom. So I'm very excited to draw that out of you today. But first, you're going to tell us an interesting fact about yourself that most people don't know.
My brothers and I were sponsored paintball players. So we got to travel around Southwest Missouri and shoot people with paintballs. Maybe not for a living, but we weren't in the red when we were, you know?
Yeah. So first of all, you must have been really good.
I like to think we were getting better every time.
Okay, hold up a second. Nobody pays money to sponsor somebody who's bad at their job.
There's always someone bigger and badder, though.
You must have been sick, though. You must have been winning a lot. Let me put it that way. You must have been winning a lot.
Yeah, we ran through a group of Marines at a Toys for Tots tournament it was under 40 seconds.
What?
Yeah, I think the difference is when you play paintball for a while, you kind of get to a point where you can like matrix it, right?
Yeah.
And when you're a Marine, you don't matrix it.
No, you don't think that way.
They hid, and we didn't hid, right? We just took it to them.
Dang, dude, that's crazy, man. I can still, as I'm listening to you, I can still remember the welts. Whoever out there has done paintballing, it is not for the faint of heart. Like it'll leave some bruises on you, for sure.
Yeah,
in places you don't want bruises. Oh. So, all right, cool. So what does that tell me about? That tells me that what it might tell me about you is that you're a bit driven, competitive. You got to you're fierce. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm competitive. I don't like losing much.
Yeah. Yeah. You know? All right. Well, so I'm sure that served you well in your life. Let's talk a little bit about your origin story, because we're angling towards talking about you as a benefits consultant. And in a world that I think most people can identify with is a very confusing and often frustrating world. And we'll get into that a little bit later, but I would love to hear a little bit more of your origin story.
Yeah. I was self-employed for 8 years or so before moving into the benefits world. And when you're self-employed, health insurance is a constant, it's just always hanging over your head, right?
Yeah.
Do I have what I need? Right. A couple of young kids, family, whatever, starting to get older, playing competitive sports. I mean, we had a broken finger, a broken wrist, and a broken arm in our house in 1 year. And that was just with the kids. That doesn't include me, you know? And so it was something that I became very, very aware of. And I had jobs before where I had to help people through open enrollment and things like that, right? You know, large corporations, multi-state. I'm in charge of helping people walk through what it means. So I was a little bit familiar, but you kind of realize how expensive the whole situation is, right? And what it means if you don't have insurance, or you don't have the right insurance, or it doesn't have what you thought it had. And I had the opportunity about a year ago to step into this space, as a career, and help. In my role, I help companies, not individuals, but help companies find benefits packages that ideally are meaningful to their employees. Right. But also, hit the number for a budget, because generally speaking, salary and benefits are two of the top 3 line items of any company out there,
Yep. So help me understand, what makes you good at that? What makes you good at your job?
I appreciate that you assume I'm good at my job.
Yeah.
It's a ton to learn, and it's constantly changing. And so I say that kind of as a joke, because it's, the landscape changes, legislation changes, and everyone kind of has to pivot. right?
Yeah.
What are we going to do? How are we going to get there? How are we going to do more with less, right? How are we going to offer the same thing we had with less money, or, it got more expensive, so we have to spend more money, but we're trying to keep it all there. I think empathy is probably it.
Yeah.
Right. Because I've been there, and I've had that fight, right? I've worked for large companies that have great benefits, and they can afford, to do really cool things. Like I had a coworker some years ago, she and her husband have a child because the company we worked for paid for IVF.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and that was not a small amount of money that they paid,
No.
And that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
That they got to find that dream of being a parent. But I've also worked for smaller companies where, you kind of have to stack insurance on top of other insurance to make sure that you have coverage. So that, if something happens, you can, because we have a problem, and it's probably nationwide, but we have people who have insurance, right, through a company, but because it has become so expensive, the whole process, and deductibles get higher, and the higher the deductible, the cheaper it costs, right? So there are people who have insurance, but they're effectively uninsured because if something happened, they can't afford to even get to the deductible.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of people who are in fact insured who are putting off care because they can't afford it.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, do you feel like you understand why that has happened here? And I think you've even mentioned to me that Colorado specifically, where you and I both live, is worse than most places. But I understand this as kind of a national epidemic. So I'd love to hear kind of why are we feeling this pain? And I ask this because this is a good segue. I do a best workplaces research project. My company does a best workplaces research project where we're surveying employees. We're getting thousands of data points from different employees, specifically in Colorado Springs, Colorado, where I'm based. And what came up to the top as the biggest concern for employees was health insurance and how expensive it is and how little you get for it. And there was a lot of frustration that came up. So I'm like, wow, this is a serious felt pain in this community in specific, but I think broader than that. I think generally speaking, people are feeling this
so
pain.
I think it's a problem everywhere. It's bad in Colorado, and I had the opportunity to talk to someone who is in the C-suite of a Colorado health system who works through problems like this. And here in Colorado Springs, where I am too, they have almost 2/3 of their care is to people with Medicaid. Okay. And so when you look at the federal cuts that have been made to some of those programs, right, you have Colorado, which I believe Colorado is a fairly toxic state for insurance. It's true of some other things too. We have a legislature that passes laws without understanding the downstream effect, right? And I'm not saying what they're doing is necessarily bad, but or good, but the way they're going about it makes it difficult for insurance companies to do business, right? And no one wants to hear, oh, woe is the insurance company. They make billions of dollars, and so they make, half $500 million less. That's not that big a deal. But ultimately, the economics of it are those costs are passed along to people. And so the state of Colorado is staring down the barrel of like an $850 million budget shortfall. And so when you have a large percentage of the population that was on Medicaid, right, to the point that some of these people even have the option of healthcare at their companies, but it's cheaper for them because, they qualify for Medicaid, so they're on it. Now, that's going to change things, right? And so Medicaid pays a lot less than normal insurance. And so hospitals are a business, and they still have to, cover whatever that amount is, right? A lot of them have endowments, and they're running things off of the interest for that and whatever, right? So I think at the end of the day, you have an industry and a group that, right? The doctors blame the insurance companies.
Mm-hmm.
The insurance companies blame the doctors. They blame the legislature,
Mm-hmm.
right, of any given state or federal,
Mm-hmm.
right? And ultimately, what we have is a lot of fat, and I don't know how you cut it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the state of Colorado has passed in the last 5 years, I believe it's over 400 bills relating to healthcare. And so hospital systems are having to hire people to deal with those regulations that never even see patients, right? I don't know what percentage of staff never sees patients because they're just dealing with the legislative burden. But in my mind, that's probably one of the easiest places to fix it, is to cut the legislative burden, right? Not that I want those people to necessarily lose a job, but if hospitals didn't have the legislative burden, they could charge a little less, which means insurance companies wouldn't pay as much, which means the end user, the companies that get health plans and the people who have health plans through their companies or individual markets are going to be able to pay less, right? Like that's how you shrink the system down.
Yep. All right. So that all makes sense in terms of why the problem exists. So what would you say then to just people who are kind of stuck in this, right? Anybody who's watching this who is feeling this particular kind of pain, which is, man, I'm struggling to find insurance that meets our basic needs, or I'm paying for insurance, but I'm paying so much for insurance that it's, pulling money away from other places where I need to spend. What's your message to people that are dealing with that? And I maybe an unfair question, but let's start there and then we'll progress.
I had this conversation with someone recently. I called as part of my job and got yelled at for about 25 minutes about the state of healthcare and what it is. And that's fine. I mean, it happens. That was an extreme example, right? But at one point, I told the gentleman that I was talking to, like, look, I can't fix the problem, right? If I had the power to fix the problem, I wouldn't be the guy calling you trying to have a conversation. And so I think for the people that are in it, I think there are ways, right, to, it might cause you to need a job change, right? Might need to go from a small company that either doesn't have great benefits or can't afford benefits, right? Maybe they're not big enough to do it, to go to a larger company, right? I always say, look at the bottom line, right? You might take a little bit less money, but if the benefits are better, and at the end of the year, the numbers are more in your favor, like that's a positive, right? So I think sometimes you kind of have to look at it holistically. And then there are a lot of options, even outside of what a company offers, where you can stack types of insurance.
Yeah.
Right. So when I was self-employed, and I tell this story a lot, I had some skin cancer that was found, my neck and on my back. Oddly enough, I had a buddy who was selling, a lot of people know it as AFLAC, but it's a lot of times called worksite benefits, critical illness, and some of those types of things. And it's very inexpensive insurance, right? I didn't have time to go meet with him. And if I had, when they found the cancer, they just scratched me a check for about $30,000, right? Which would have more than covered what was spent for my healthcare premiums for that entire year, would have covered the deductible and then some. And that's not a get rich quick kind of situation, but it would have removed that burden from my family's budget. And so, and I mean, we're talking about, even on an individual basis, $20 a month for a family to have it. Yeah. And, not that, I mean, if you throw $20 at this, that, and the other thing, pretty soon you're out a lot more than $20. But to have that kind of coverage, there are options. And so whether it's talking to someone like me, whether it's talking to someone in an HR department, there's a lot of good advice online. There's some bad stuff too, right? But insurance in general, I think, and this is true. I have this attitude with my homeowners and my car insurance and everything else. insurance has to be actively managed, right? You can't just take what you're given. You have to ask questions. You have to do some research. Sometimes you have to dig, right? Because I think, I still think, like, if I had just taken the time to meet with my buddy, right? And then I met with him, a month or so after the cancer was removed. And I was like, hey, let's talk. And he's like, you've had cancer. You can't get that kind of insurance, right? So,
wow.
Which the way to get around that is to do it with the group, but then you have to be part of an employer that's willing to put that kind of stuff into place.
Yes. Got it. Okay. So it sounds like you've got some, what I'm noticing is, as in other industries, the solution is we kind of have to be shrewd. We have to be shrewd. We have to realize that these institutions have a lot of fat in them. Mm-hmm. The institutions have a lot of bureaucracy in them, and they have a lot of complexity in them. And to some degree, we are going to have to advocate for ourselves and get a base level of understanding. And whether that's through doing my own research, which I hate to do personally. I hate researching things that I don't want to become good at, or I don't want to, you know what I mean? I don't want to become good at, I don't have any desire to become good at benefits understanding, benefits complexity. So I'm always going to kind of default towards a person. I want to know a maven. I want to know a maven who knows it, and then I want to, and that wants to know it and actively knows it, actively using that knowledge, and then I want to pull from that person's wisdom, as opposed to. But
and I would love to be that for people.
Yeah.
I probably can't be that for everybody, and unfortunately, on an individual basis, I probably don't have time to hold hands with someone all the way through the process.
Yeah.
But if someone needed some help, I could point them in the right direction. And the gentleman, my buddy who I grew up with, who helped me get this job that I have now, was that guy for me. Right. And I have another one, who they were both in the health insurance space. And as I would do, what research I felt like I needed to do when I was self-employed, I would reach out to them. Hey, am I understanding this correct? Am I not thinking of something or whatever? And if I could be that to somebody, I would be happy to. And I think Johnny, you put it perfect. You have to be shrewd, right? You have to actively manage it, because, I don't really know bad doctors who don't want to help people, right? They're like all of us, they have families, they have kids, they have a job. Their job takes a lot of hours, a lot more than most, right? And most of them are chucked full with what they already have in their schedule and their life.
Yep.
And, they're not trying to cause harm. They're just doing the best they can with what they've got to work with too. And so, sometimes you have to advocate for yourself, I think, and being shrewd in that is, probably the best way to start.
Well, and I see how those walk hand in hand, because I was thinking about, yes, I've noticed over the years, I've had to become a lot more active in how I leverage doctors, right? It used to be I go to a doctor and the doctor tells you what's wrong, and without question, you just accept their diagnosis and you accept what course of treatment. Well, you have these options. Okay, yeah, but what do you recommend? Well, I recommend this. Okay, I'll do that. Right? Like that there, I think as a culture, there was a time that not that long ago when we had a lot more trust in our institutions, period, across the board.
Uh-huh. Well, we've become so litigious as a society, right? My self-employment was real estate, and a good chunk of the continuing education that I took was how not to wind up in court, right? Yeah. How to answer a question without actually answering the question, right? Let's spin the answer back on you, right? Hey, what do you think about this? And instead of getting an answer from someone who's educated in it, you get another question, right? So that they can give you a couple of options. Well, hey, you could do this or you could do this. Which one sounds better to you? Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Right?
Yeah.
You're the professional. And so,
right.
And I get it, right? Because it only takes going to court one time to blow all of that up. And so, I think that's probably a large part of it. I know I've felt that same transition over the course of whatever, is that, if you tell someone what you think and you give them advice, you you might have to stand in front of a judge and answer for that advice if they don't like the result.
Yeah. Right. Which really just means the onus is on the consumer. Right? Like, now I'm understanding. When I go to the doctor, I have to go with a page full of my own notes. When I go to the doctor, I have to go having maybe done a bit of my own research on ChatGPT, right? So that I know what questions to ask, right? And so that if they tell me something that seems to contradict with what I've discovered, I can say, oh, that seems to contradict. Can you tell me why? Can you tell me more about that, right? So that I can ask better questions, so that I can get better outcomes, because the time has passed when those outcomes are just handed to you, because like you're saying. And so I now see why this also correlates with that, right? Because course of treatment or whatever it is that you're facing also has financial ramifications. And depending on what treatment you choose or what path you choose, there are financial implications. And now you're in the health insurance world, and what it will cover and what it won't cover. And so basically, by necessity, it's not good. It's not fun. I don't feel good about it, but we've got to have a different actual posture towards these services.
Yeah. You can't just if you float down the river passively, you're going to wind up somewhere you may not want to be. And so sometimes you got to grab a paddle and row. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the kind of people that you're helping right now. So I know, and just to go back a little bit, Blaze, what I know about you is that you've got a big heart, and you're an abundance-minded, generosity-minded individual, which is the kind of people that I seek out, and the kind of people that I love to spend time with and present to other people. So I know that you've got that. I know that you actually have a gift, like that you even referenced early on, professional sponsored paintball guy taking out Marines. You've got tenacity. Right? You've got drive and tenacity. And so when you go to bat for somebody, you don't go to bat for everybody because you're a human. But when you do go to bat for somebody, you go hard. Right? I would imagine that's what your clients, which are owners and I guess financial departments, HR departments.
Yeah, depending on the size of the company.
I'm assuming that's what they appreciate about you, but tell me a little bit more about your relationship with your clients and who comes to you.
Yeah. It's not necessarily industry specific. It can be. Insurance, when it comes down to it, how it matters when it comes to industry is, like, there are certain businesses that are offering benefits because they have to, right? They're required because of their size or whatever. And that's a different conversation than some businesses that might even be a little bit smaller, that the type of employee expects certain level of benefits, right? So
right.
Profession, right? You don't show up as a banker or an engineer, and even if you're working for a small company, and have them go, yeah, well, we don't offer benefits. You can figure that out yourself, right? They're never going to hire anybody, right?
Yeah.
But then you also look at like an engineering firm, or something like that, a professional services firm. They're going to have a lot higher enrollment in their benefits, because typically the people in those roles are going to be the breadwinner in their family, right? Highly compensated. You go to like a school, and generally speaking, I would say, without not wanting to get myself in trouble, but I would say if you looked at a population of teachers, you're going to have more female teachers than male, right? Now, you might have teachers that are the breadwinner in their family, or they might have a spouse that is, self-employed, and so they get their benefits. But generally speaking, in something like that, not that it's any less great of a profession, but the family makeup of those employees is different. And so you're going to have a lower participation rate in those benefits. And that can sometimes be good for an organization, and sometimes it can make it hard, right? Like, if, companies have to pay for a portion of the benefits for their people. And so, right.
Yep.
They may not be able to afford 95% participation, right?
Right. Right.
And
Which means they got to scale it back for everybody.
right. And so then, so do they scale it back to make sure they hit budget, and offer less benefits? And then do they stack some of the worksite and ancillary benefits, like I mentioned, to help shore it up for certain people? I talk to some companies where, they have very little usage in their medical, but they have people that want, legal shield or pet insurance and, and some of the other ancillaries because their partner's health plan has good medical, but they don't have all these other things. And so, my wife and I played that game too, where we would look at during open enrollment, like, here's what her company offered, here's what my company offered. How do we stack these? Hey, your vision insurance is better than mine, and so we're going to enroll me under yours, but our medical plans are roughly the same, and it's cheaper to just go with the employee only. So I had my medical, she had, I think there was one year where we each had our own medical plan. One of us was on the other's vision, and then it was swapped on the dental, right? Because we had to look through it. And it sounds crazy, but from a cost and benefit standpoint, that's the type of thing that, sometimes happens.
So you've mentioned a term that, and this might be some of the gold here for people, because a lot of times when you're entrenched in something and it's what you do every day, you're aware of actually very simple possibilities that most people just wouldn't be aware of. So when you say this word stacking, can I assume that that's one of your strategies? Even the way you've described it, is it a strategy you use often? And can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean when you say stacking?
Sure. So, very prime example would be a higher deductible plan, right? So instead of having a $2,500 out of pocket, you might have a $6,000 out of pocket, right? But with that, you stack some of the worksite plans. And again, a lot of people know them as AFLAC, but critical illness. So it covers things like cancer and, heart disease, probably diabetes. Don't quote me on this. I'd have to look at the deal because there's no way to memorize it. You have accident insurance, right? And you have hospital indemnity, right? And I tell people all the time, if you are planning to have kids, or if you have a spouse that's pregnant and going to give birth that year, get hospital indemnity insurance, because them just getting checked into the hospital to have a kid, you're going to get a check scratched to you to cover a chunk of that deductible, right?
Yeah.
And so when I say stacking, what I mean is you look at the plan, right? The medical plan or whatever it is, and you see, okay, here's where I'm covered and here's where the holes are, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I could afford a $6,000 deductible, but I don't want to. So can you add some other coverages that fill in some of those holes that cost you less in monthly outflow than getting a $2,500 deductible plan that probably still has holes in it, but the holes are smaller, right? Yeah. And so you have to look at your situation. And I'm a big fan. Anyone who talks to me for any period of time knows I'm a big fan of worksite. My son took a hockey stick to the forehead a couple of weeks ago and got his forehead glued closed. And, we know we have kids who are out being rambunctious and playing competitive sports and all of that. And so we have accident insurance. And oddly enough, our portion of that bill was about $300, and the accident insurance paid us $300.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you have to stack it. And I tell my clients, I tell the companies that I meet with, prospects, whoever, if you're constantly just going out looking for the cheapest thing, what you're going to wind up is with the cheapest thing. Right. And I understand that there are budgets and you have to work through that process, but insurance should, especially health insurance, should be a conversation. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether it's your HR department talking to someone who does the job that I do, hopefully me, but somebody who knows what they're doing and is out there to help, or an individual benefits broker, it needs to be a conversation so that you can stack, so you can look at it, so you can make sure you have all the coverages that you need, because the days of just needing medical, dental, and vision those are gone, right? Like, it's just not enough. It's not going to cover what most people need.
Yeah. Yep. What part of your job feels like it aligns with your calling?
I always try to think about the end user, right? The employee who's signing up for those benefits. And as best I can, am I presenting solutions, right? Because again, at the end of the day, even if your budget is unlimited, there's only so much money you're going to spend on any one thing, right? And especially health insurance. So am I bringing solutions to the table that allow an organization to maximize those dollars so that, well, if you haven't figured out, I'm a storyteller. So let me tell you a story.
Yeah.
Over Thanksgiving, my kids were wrestling in the basement and my daughter took a knee to the nose, right?
The amount of stories you have about your kids' injuries, bro.
Oh, yeah, that's why I have good insurance.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't. And so a couple of days later, her nose, it's still a little swollen. It hurts to the touch. And I said, honey, we got to go. You need to get checked out. She didn't want to go, but I told her, I'm like, hey, if your nose is broken and we don't fix it, the way they fix it is they have to break it again to set it properly, right? Because it's passageways. That's how you breathe. And so we go to the doctor, we get checked in. They're like, hey, we need to take x-rays. And I had this immediate tensing up, oh gosh, this just went from a couple hundred to close to $1,000 appointment, right? And then I remembered I'm no longer on self-employed insurance. And the sense of relief, right? Because I'd have spent the money anyway, because that's my baby girl, right? But I know I'm good, right? It's covered and it's good. And I want to help organizations as best they can give their employees that feeling.
Yeah.
Whether it be at open enrollment, looking at it going, oh man, this is good. We're going to be covered. We know we have some stuff coming up this year, right? We have a baby on the way. We have a whatever, right? Or when they show up to the urgent care or the ER, or they, have a physical and they find out something's going on and they're going to need care and it's better than they thought, right? Because the last thing you want to be thinking about when you're going through something like that is what it costs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if I can help people get there, that's what makes me smile. That's what makes me get up and do it again tomorrow.
You want to give people peace of mind if you can, and you're and the way you do it, where you're situated in the structure of things, is you're advocating for the employee, but you're also helping the employer figure out the best way to use their money that's going to get the most impact for the end user.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned two kind of motives that companies have for insurance. I'm going to go back a little bit. Two motives that companies have. One motive is because they have to, right? The other motive was because it's expected, right? So if I'm hiring if there's a high demand, high competitive field, and people are expecting benefits, I better have benefits that are on par or superior to my competitors who are also pulling from this pond of talent.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, do you also run into, I'd say there's probably one there's a different one that is culture. I also know, and I have a platform called Workplace Delight where I talk about this, where people that are going beyond, companies that are going beyond employee satisfaction and into the realm of employee delight, where delighting employees is baked into the culture, to where there's an authentic mission and passion of the leadership to make life as good as possible for their employees.
Yeah.
How often do you run into that in your profession? I mean, I don't know if this is a loaded question, but I'm wondering, as far as you run into all three, I'm sure all the time, how often do you run into companies where you're like, oh, they're really trying to go above and beyond what's required of them or even what the industry expects of them?
A lot more than you would think is the answer. And it's I love those conversations, right? And I think they get it, right? I think I remember coming out of college and getting into the working world, and it was who is willing to work the most hours, right? And we hope you're good at your job, but like you can get way ahead by just showing up earlier and leaving later than all of your people. And I think that mindset is switched, right? I think companies you even see it in people's titles on LinkedIn or their business cards, right? It's no longer HR director or director of HR. It's, director of culture.
Yeah.
Director of people,
chief people experience officer. Yeah.
Right. They're realizing, and as someone who managed people, can you imagine working for a company where you're valued, right? And it doesn't mean that you have like some super Cadillac or Ferrari plan of insurance, right? But that they genuinely care about compensating you as best they can, giving you benefits, whether it be health benefits and ancillary things that go along with that, to, helping you plan for your retirement, right? To giving you good work-life balance, right? Understanding that we're all people and, sometimes things happen, right? And so I think companies are figuring it out, and you don't have to have a super expensive benefits plan to have that mindset and that culture, right? There are ways to take care of people. I have friends that run businesses that are small, 8, 10 people. Hey, get out of here, right? A little early. Like, there's no vacation time. You had a great week. You're off Friday afternoon. Hey, excuse me. Let me buy you lunch. Genuinely tell me how you're doing, right?
Yep.
Have your spouse, whatever that is, and treating people like they matter, like they're not just an employee number, but they're a person.
Yep.
And those people are recruiting and retaining the type of talent they want. And when they do it, the company thrives, right? You have less HR problems. You have less, people enjoy coming to work because they matter. And so I think that's a really cool shift that we're all seeing, right? And I talk to HR directors, and they're talking about culture. Like, I'm trying to build a culture rather than them telling you the stories of all the people that they've had to bust for doing stuff that they're not supposed to be doing, right?
Yeah.
All the people they had to write up and put on performance plans and whatever.
Yeah. I love, maybe that's even a takeaway here, is that for owners, right? Because you're speaking, a lot of this conversation, we've been speaking to employees and how to advocate for themselves, but really who you're working with and who you're speaking to every day are owners and the departments that oversee these areas of the business for larger organizations. But one of the takeaways for me is that health insurance can and should be an extension of culture, right? So whatever your culture is, your health insurance is going to reflect that to some degree, right? With all of the other things that you're doing to either show or not show appreciation for the people that work for you. And culture has shifted, like the greater culture has shifted in such a way that people have less of a tolerance for organizations that really aren't explicitly taking care of them, right? Like, if I feel like I'm a number, right? Like you talked about, there's the companies that are like, well, what's the minimum insurance I can have? Because whatever that is, sign me up for that. What's the cheapest, most minimal that still keeps me in compliance with the government? Give me that. And then there's, give me enough that I'm on par with my competitors and in the war for talent. But then there's a different level, which I love to see companies getting into that level, which is, man, how do we just create flourishing, right? How do we create flourishing amongst the people that are affiliated with us?
And you know what? I know some companies that are on hey, we hit 50 full-time equivalent employees. We have to offer insurance. And the budget isn't going to allow us to do something great, but we can do other things.
Yes.
Still have that great, like, I know companies that have minimum health plans that have great culture because they care about their people.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And that does become it can become a very nuanced conversation depending on the size of your company. In terms of
and the makeup of the employee. I mean, and that's why I say the whole situation has to be active. It has to be a conversation. And I tell people all the time, like, I don't just quote health insurance, right? This has to be a discussion. It has to be a relationship. It has to be a partnership.
Yeah.
To tap into me and my company's resources and to find out where you're at and really help you get where you want to go. Like, it has to be a conversation.
Yeah, man.
Fix it in 3 months. It's going to be 3 years.
And if you're good at your job, you're going to understand the culture and you're going to become an asset to the culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what Blaze is going to do.
Right.
I love it, man. Well, we're winding down, but my last question for you is, I always want people to know your dream. So what's a dream that you have? What would you like to accomplish in your time on this earth?
Has nothing to do with work. So I am at that spot in raising kids where their personalities and the things they like are really starting to come out in hobbies and the way they're spending their time.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was sorry.
And no, go for it, man.
My dad was good at putting my brothers and I on his shoulders so that we could reach higher than him.
Yeah.
It's been a tough year for my dad, health-wise.
Yeah.
So he's still here. Didn't think that was going to be the case multiple times.
Yeah.
And so I'm just trying to emulate that.
Yeah.
I just want to help my kids get as high as they can.
Yeah, man, that is deep and also beautiful, man. Thank you for sharing that. Just being a good dad. And I love that image of just, man, I'm going to lift my kids up because I have the heart of a father too, man. I understand that. I feel that every single day. And it's a beautiful calling, man.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful calling. I'm sorry to hear about your dad.
Thank you. Like I said, he's still here. He's ornery and he's still kicking.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you tell me I hope I'm not making you late. I'm hoping I'm not keeping you from anything, but I'd love to hear one cool thing, one thing that your dad did right.
Probably during an era where men didn't share their feelings.
Yeah.
My dad always told us that he loved us. I remember another story. When I was young, my dad took a job. It was a seasonal job inside his company, but it was just a role that only happened in the spring. And he would leave really, really early on Monday morning, and he'd get back really late on Friday night for a couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And he would come in and wake us up at like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning to give us a hug and tell us that he loved us before he left, because he never wanted us to wonder, I think a lot of it came from the fact that like his parents and my mom's parents, like my grandparents, they didn't do that with their kids. And so my dad was like, look, you're never going to wonder, my dad, on top of that, he found realistic ways and reasons to tell us that he was proud of us. Right.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm proud of that grade. I'm proud of the grade you got on that paper that you wrote, or in this class. I know, it wasn't easy and you really had to study hard. Or, hey, I'm proud of the way you acted on the sports field or with your team or in that interaction, whatever it was. Right. Yeah. My dad made sure to tell us how he felt, which, unfortunately at that time was rare.
Oh, for sure. For sure, man.
So he was deliberate. He was deliberate about that.
Dude, thank God for your dad. It sounds like a great man and also a great legacy, because now you get to do that. Now you get to do that with your kids, right?
Yeah, I hope so.
Wake them up at 3. Dude, I love that. Wake them up at 3 a.m. just to tell you, like that's a ballsy move, but like it's right. It's so right. It's so right.
Well, if they don't go back to bed, Mom might have something to say on Friday.
Yeah,
home.
That'll get you in trouble with your wife, for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But it'll also create a legacy of sons who knew that they were important and that they were loved.
Right.
Dude. Hey, I've enjoyed talking with you, Blaze.
I've enjoyed talking with you. I always do, Johnny.
Yeah. No, this is a good time. Thank you for educating me. Thank you for educating the people that are watching the show. And if you've been with us up to this point, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've gotten some nuggets that you can take with you and make better decisions in life. And we'll keep having compelling conversations. So we'll see you next time.
If I can help, reach out, please.
Yep.
If I don't have the answer, we'll find it together.
Blaze will go to bat hard for you. That's what I know.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, take it easy. Have a great rest of your day.